Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed one, the worthy one, the supremely enlightened one. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So my friends, now I'm going to share with you this sutta, shielding the mind. Okay? So one day, a person asked from the Buddha, he said to the Buddha, whatever you have shielded the mind from can cause you suffering. So you should shield the mind from everything, then you are freed from all suffering. Isn't this rational to say like that? Whatever you have shielded the mind from can cause you suffering. Whatever means any thought. When you shield, when you prevent coming all those thoughts to your mind, when you shield every thought, he say can cause you suffering. So he said, you should shield the mind from everything, then you are freed from all suffering. Seems like it's true. Sometimes people choose such things, like being intoxicated sometimes to stop all the thoughts when these thoughts are springing again and again from the mind. So they think, okay, I will be intoxicated. So then I'm not aware about what's come to my mind. So then it's a kind of like freedom. So you should shield the mind from everything, then you are freed from all suffering. So the Buddha answered, you need not shield the mind from everything. When the mind is under control, you need only shield the mind from where the bad things come. So as long as our mind is under control, so it is controlled. You don't need to prevent your mind from coming all the unskillful thoughts when it's under your control, when the mind is under control, because there is no any unskillful thoughts as long as mind is controlled. You need only shield the mind from where the bad things come. Whenever it is a bad thought, so you should stop that bad thought. So then you confirm your control in your mind by good thoughts. Does that make sense? Let's say our mind is, so we cultivate loving, kindful thoughts. Okay. So then is it a controlled mind or uncontrolled mind? When you cultivate loving, kindful thought, is it controlled or not controlled? So you control your mind by cultivating loving, kindful thoughts. As long as you have loving, kindful thoughts, you don't have angry thoughts because you controlled your mind. So the very opposite of angry thoughts is the loving kindness. As long as you have loving, kindful thoughts, you don't have angry thoughts. When you have angry thoughts, you don't have loving, kindful thoughts. Let's say you cultivate all the loving, kindful thoughts. So what happened to the angry thoughts? What happened to the angry thoughts? Will the angry thoughts follows you if you cultivate loving kindness?
No.
Okay, what happened when anger occupies our mind? We go out of control. We don't know what we speak, we don't know what we do because it's anger, right? But what if there is loving kindness? When you have loving kindness, so you have control over your mind because it calms you down. It brings you calmness. Now the Buddha say, cultivate loving kindness, then you don't need much to be concerned with shielding your mind because your mind is well developed with loving kindness. So then there will not any angry thoughts. You need not shield the mind from everything. When the mind is under control, you need only shield the mind from where the bad things come. So then you have some space in your mind to see whenever there arise angry thoughts. So you can let go of those thoughts because you have loving kindness. So Buddha say, because of this, you need not shield the mind from everything. When the mind is under control, you need only shield the mind from where the bad things come. If somebody were to stop all thoughts, let's say somebody's stopping all the thoughts, no matter it's loving kindness or anger, they're stopping all the thoughts from their mind. So then they don't have control over their mind, which means that they can't continue that control of their mind because they are removing all the thoughts. But Buddha say, as long as you have good thoughts, skillful thoughts, it is calmness. It is freedom. Let's say when there is like thoughts connected to contentment or the thoughts connected to compassion, thoughts connected to loving kindness or forgiveness, or any detachment or thoughts on renunciation. So these are good thoughts, so which is very powerful. Let's say that we are training mindfulness, so which means we are trying to control our mind. So here the Buddha's idea is that when you control your mind through mental training, it is the freedom, it is the protection for you. So you don't need to concern much about unskillful thoughts because you controlled your mind. Otherwise, we can find in a mind which is very messy and very distracted, and always our mind brings us many thoughts. So we can easily be confused, right? So we can find our goal, what we should do, because we are in the midst of this distracted mind. Does that make sense? So one need to choose the mind control. So that's why Buddha say that you don't need to find for a training to prevent all the thoughts from your mind, but you should choose to control your mind, relying on skillful things. So then you can stop any other distractive thoughts. Let's go to another sutta to clarify this idea. This sutta is called Thief of Scent. On one occasion, a monk was dwelling among the Kosalans, which means a city, in a certain woodland thicket. Now on that occasion, when he had returned from his alms round, after his meal, that monk used to descend into a pond and sniff a red lotus. Then the Devata, which means a deity, that inhabited that woodland thicket, having compassion for that monk, desiring his good, desiring to stir up a sense of urgency in him, approached him and addressed him in verse. So there was a deity in that forest where this monk was living, and the deity saw what was happened. So this monk was entering into a pond and sniffed a red lotus. And now the deity, out of compassion, thought I should bring him a sense of urgency, something that we don't have actually. Sometimes we don't have like sense of urgency. So I do it right now. So now even this monk who is like ordained for his entire life dedicated to training, he was not having sense of urgency in that moment. So a deity out of compassion wanted to stir up a sense of urgency in him and approach to him and address him in verse. Now his goal is to make him urgent to the training. When you sniff this lotus flower, an item that has not been given, this is one factor of theft. You, dear sir, are a thief of scent. Now he said, it's a factor of theft. So the flower wasn't given to you, but you sniffed it. It's a theft, and you are stealing a scent from this flower. Now the monk gave the answer, I do not take, I do not damage. I sniff the lotus from afar. So for what reason do you say that I'm a thief of scent? I didn't break it. I didn't take it. I just like sniff it from afar. So for what reason do you say that I'm stealing the scent? Again, the monk said, one who digs up the lotus stalks, one who damages the flowers, one of such rough behavior, why is he not spoken to? There are people who damage the flowers. There are people who are in rough behavior. Why is he not spoken to? Now, why these deities are coming to me and telling me that you are stealing? Now, what is the goal of this deity? To bring him sense of urgency. Okay. Now the Devata, the deity said, when a person is rough and fierce, badly soiled like a nursing cloth, I have nothing to say to him. But it's to you that I ought to speak. He said, there are beings who are badly soiled like a nursing cloth, which means their mind, their heart is completely soiled like a nursing cloth, which means the nursing cloth is always like they use the nursing cloth to wipe all the dirt. So it's already like soiled, already impure. So I have nothing to say to him. The deity said, I have nothing to say to him because it's already soiled. But it is to you that I ought to speak. But for the meditator, for the practitioner, to the trainer, that I ought to speak to. Because why? Because he have a purpose now. He's seeking for complete purity in his life. Is it possible to attain a complete pure mind? That's the goal. So say, because you dedicated to your practice, the deity said, I thought, so I should speak to you. This is the most like beautiful verse here. For a person, now the deity said, for a person without blemish. always in quest for purity. Even a mere hair's tip of evil appears as big as clouds. If somebody has this goal in their life that I should seek for complete purity, even a mere hair tip of evil comes to them, appears as a big as cloud, because they are searching for pure heart. So whenever there is like unskillful thought, unskillful act from the body or from the speech, it appears to them as a big cloud, because they are so much concerned with their purity. I need a calm mind. I need a pure mind. I need a stress-free mind. So because that they have such a quest for the purity, if, they are always in quest for that purity. Even a mere hair's tip of evil appears as a big as cloud. So here we can see, my friends, the importance of having a spiritual goal in our lives. So by that, we can start to train our mind in a certain path and then achieve that purity. So for this, we might need, like, we'll definitely need a goal that we can attain so that we can free from all the evil things. Now the monk said, "Surely, Spirit, you understand me, and you have compassion for me. Please, O Spirit, speak to me again whenever you see such a deed." So he said, "Wow, that's so interesting. That's so nice. Surely, Spirit, you understand me. You know about me." So usually, like, this is kind of a nature of the mind when somebody praises us. So we become so much pride. So this is what happened to this monk. The monk said, "Okay, now even the deities are advising me. How nice this. They are saying that I'm a very good person. I'm skillful. I'm training my mind. I'm seeking for the purity. Even the deities know about me." So he said, "You understand me, and you have compassion for me. Please, Spirit, speak to me again whenever you see such a day. Please follow me, and every time tell me when I'm doing any bad thing, this is bad. Whenever I'm doing good thing, tell me this is a good thing." Now let's see what's the nature of the deities, what's the what they think. So the Devata said, "We don't live with your support. Nor are we your hired servant. I'm not your servant to tell you every time when you do good and bad, this is good, this is bad. I'm not your servant. I don't live with your support." See how straight the deities, how straightforward these deities, the intentions of the deities. You bhikkhu, you monk, should know for yourself. You should know for yourself the way to a good destination. The good destination is the purity of the heart. You should know for yourself what takes me to the good destination and what takes me to the bad destination. It's your choice. It's your freedom to choose to go to a good destination. After reading this sutta, so I came up with this thought, like how much freedom we have to choose good and bad. How much freedom we have in our life to train our mind. You should know for yourself the way to a good destination. So, which means we don't need to rely on any metrics the other people say to us, so we can find it for ourselves. Whenever your mind is so much, like, let's say, whenever the anger pops up in the mind, so we are much like, we feel so much, like Buddha say, the anger is a fire, greed is a fire, and delusion is a fire. Buddha say these three are fires. Why does it say fire? Because whenever there is angry thought, it burns our mind. Is it true? Yes. Let's say I have a greed. Let's say I have a greed. So as though whenever I have a greed thought, so it starts to burn me up until I take what I have greed for. Let's say I have a greed for a certain object or kind of a food or something. So up until I take the food, I have an ongoing burning feeling. It keeps burning, burning, burning. So Buddha say it is a fire. Greed is a fire. And again, Buddha say the anger is a fire. Let's say I have an angry thought for something. If somebody say me something which is unpleasant, so I get angry. So up until that I talk to him, or up until that I remove the anger thought, I'm burning. Oh, it's a fire. It keeps burning again and again and again. So Buddha said the anger is a fire. And the delusion. Delusion means not having the knowledge, the proper knowledge for the thoughts. So let's say there is a delusion, like let's say there is kind of like fear. So when there's fear, it's a sort of delusion. So as long as we have fear, we are burning from the fear until that we know the truth. So Buddha say these are fires. So then we can choose for ourselves to be burned or not to be burned. It's our own freedom. So we don't need anybody to say that you should remove these things, you should cultivate these things, because we still have our freedom to find our purity, our good destination. Then that monk, stirred up by that deity, acquired a sense of urgency. He got what he needed, so the deity's goal was succeeded. So he got this acquired sense of urgency.
Mate, question. What is the reason for the deity to give the monk a sense of urgency that the monk just sniff on the scent of the lotus? Well, I'm just wondering what is the reason why sniffing becomes bad thing for the monk?
It is
Yes.
because now when the monk had this quest for the purity, even a slight fault that can happen should appear to him as a cloud. Picking a red lotus is
Yeah.
a kind of act which
Okay.
can be, it is not a like stealing,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
is a very like slight thing which happened to him. Like he was like sniffing a lotus, but it is still not a stealing for sure. And now this deity wanted to bring him sense of urgency or on that act he done. So because he having a life which he trained his mind for complete freedom, for freedom from every regret, every unskillful thing.
So, Bante, so you mean that is sniffing is not a good thing?
The wrong thing is this. What are the wrong things? There are three things by body, four things by speech, three things
And
by
mind.
mind. That's what the Buddha taught. What are the four things by body? Unskillful things. That's where we should seek our purity. But now this deity's goal was to bring him sense of urgency. He wanted to stir him up. That's why he said that's why the monk answered, why there are people who break the stalks. There are people who damage the flowers. Why you don't go to them and say that? Why you only came to me to say this? Because this monk is already in a virtue. He have a virtuous life. but the deity wanted to bring him uh,
Mhm.
more energy to his practice. The deity wanted him to bring more uh, dedication to the practice. That's why he said, when you do such a simple thing, it can be a unskillful, even a slightest thing. If you are when you are seeking for a purity, it can be a very because you don't want to waste your time. That's what the deity say. You don't want to waste your time by sniffing the lotus, because you have to meditate, because
Maybe,
there is a
maybe that.
freedom, there's a purity in this world that you can achieve. That purity is where there is no anger, of fire of anger, where there is no fire of greed, where there is no fire of delusion. That's the freedom. So that's where you should reach to. As long as there is no greed, there is no anger, there is no delusion, so you have the freedom. There's no any that mind is under control. There's no any bad things in their life. Now let's say, now the Buddha used to live in a cottage which is built from sandalwood, but he did not have greed for where he lives. Out, like, even though that is smells so much like attractive, it has a very attractive fragrance, but the Buddha is not always thinking how much this cottage is fragrant, because he doesn't have greed. But still he feels, but he doesn't have greed or attachment to this cottage. He left the cottage, but by thinking that he doesn't think that I will come back to this cottage. He's going without any attachment to the cottage, even that he was lived in that place. So even these precepts or the training rules laid by the Buddha for a goal, it is not to limit our life to a certain metrics, certain standards. Why he gave these rules, not to kill, not to steal, not to sexually misconduct, is to train our mind to a freedom from greed, anger, and delusion. That's why he was teaching these training rules, which means right after you attain the enlightenment, where there is no this greed, anger, and delusion, that mind is freed. So for even for the life's sake, they don't transgress any training rule, the arahants, the enlightened ones, because they reach to that purity. Their mind is already cleansed. There's no any unskillful things in them. So because we are in the training, what we need to do is to observe the precepts and start to prevent ourselves from doing any unskillful things, because there is a goal. There's a way to go. So that is the freedom. Let's say whenever there is a great thought, if we are not protected by our training rules, we can do anything we want. So let's say I have a greed for something belong to another person. So if I keep continuing this thought process of greed, and if I'm being burned from that, even that thing is belong to another person, I would harm him to take what belong to him. Why? Because I'm propelled by my own greedy thought. The Buddha say, when our mind is being burned, we lack our mindfulness. We don't know what we are doing. So we lose our control and we become blind. Because of that blindness, we don't see that blindness means we don't see what is good and what is bad. So then we tend to do whatever comes to the mind because we are seeking for that. But when there is no greed, so we don't find our happiness by any wrong ways, any unskillful ways. We always seek for happiness from inside. So it's very difficult to speak to a person who is enjoying some like unskillful things. It's very difficult to talk to them and to say them give up these unskillful things because people don't admit that as an unskillful thing. So they have their own perceptions towards even when it comes to anger. Very rarely people admit for the anger it is as bad. Sometimes people say anger is okay. I need anger. So this is called ignorance. I'll show you another sutta, very interesting one. That's why he said, I came to you to speak to. Once upon a time, a battle was fought between gods and titans. Then Vepachitti, lord of titans, addressed the titans, my good sirs, if the titans defeat the gods in this battle, bind Sakka, the lord of gods, by his limbs and neck and bring him to my presence in the citadel of the titans. Meanwhile, Sakka, Lord Gods, addressed the god of the 33, my good sirs, if the gods defeat the titans in this battle, bind the Vepachitti by his limbs, which means the titan's leader, and neck and bring him to my presence in the hall of justice of the gods. In that battle, the gods won, the titans lost. Okay. So the gods of the 33 bound Vepachitti by his limbs and neck and brought him to Sakka's presence in the hall of justice of the gods. Okay. And as Sakka was entering and leaving the hall, Vepachitti, the Titan's leader, abused and insulted him with rude, harsh words. So the Matali, the charioteer, addressed the Sakka in verse. The Matali was his attendant, like his charioteer, the person who is living always close by with this god's leader Sakka. While this Vepachiti, the Titan's leader, telling him bad words, harsh words, rude words, he said, "Oh, God Sakka, Magawa." Magawa means another term for the god Sakka. Magawa or Sakka, is it from fear or from weakness that you put up with such harsh words in the presence of Vepachitti? So he said, "Oh, that Vepachitti, the Titan leader, keep abusing you from the harsh words. Is it because that you are weak or you are fear, you are frightened to him that you bear these things?" It is not out of fear or weakness that I am patient with Vepachitti. It is not I'm weak, that I'm patient. For how can a sensible person like me get in a fight with a fool? Fools would vent even more if there's no one to put a stop to them. So a wise one should stop a fool with forceful punishment. That's what is very popular in the modern world. This is what the people say. Fools would vent even more if there's no one to put a stop to them. So a wise one should stop a fool with forceful punishment. We should punish who is who is uh, abusing you.
Mante, this is Matali speaking.
Yeah, this is Madhali speaking. Yeah, this is the reply of the Madhali. I think that this is the only way to put a stop to a fool. When you know that the other is upset, be mindful and stay calm. So the God said, I think that is the only way to put stop to a fool when you know that the other is upset. Be mindful and stay calm. That's the only way to stop the harsh words. If somebody say me harsh word, I'll tell another one. And the other one tell me harsh word and I tell another one. And he tell me another one, and another thing. No end. No end. Buddha say the person who win the battle is the person who become mindful, stay calm, and spread loving kindness. That's the only way to stop the battle. Buddha say, Nahi verena verani, which means by anger you can't overcome anger. Buddha say, by loving kindness you can overcome anger. Because the both people get anger, so they don't know where they are going. When they both of they are fighting, they don't know where they are going. So there is no end for this. When someone is engaged in battle, there's no end for that until if somebody start to be loving kind. It can go ages and ages if we don't start loving kindness. I see this fault, Vasava, in just being patient. When a fool thinks, now that charioteer, what his name? Matali said, I see this fault, Vasava. I'm in just being patient. I see a fault in being patient. He said, when a fool thinks he puts up with me out of fear, the idiot will go after you even harder, like a cow chasing someone who runs away. I see this fault, Vasava, in just being patient. When a fool thinks he puts up with me out of fear. Now he thinks the other person might think like he's being impatient because of fear. The idiot will go after you even harder. He'll start to do even harder to you, like a cow chasing someone who runs away. Let him think this if he wishes or not. He puts up with me out of fear of goals culminating in one's own good. None better than patience is found. That's the God Sankhya. Let him think this if he wishes or not. No matter whatever the other person thinks. I don't care whatever the person thinks. He puts up with me out of fear or not. No, that's not the problem here. The problem here, now the enemy is not the person who is abusing you. The enemy is your own anger. That's what you have to fight with. Let him think this if he wishes or not. He puts up with me out of fear or not. Of goals culminating in one's own good, none better than patience is found. See, he has a goal. He has a spiritual goal. What is that goal? The goal of purity. None better than patience is found. He's finding his own purpose. He's finding his goal by being in patience. When a strong person puts up with a weakling, they call that the ultimate patience. For a weakling must always be patient. The strength of folly is really just weakness, they say. But no one can challenge a person who is strong, guarded by the teaching. When you get angry at an angry person, you just make things worse for yourself. When you don't get angry at an angry person, you win a battle hard to win. When you know that the other is angry, you act for the good of both. As long as you know, as soon as you understood that that person is angry, you act for the good of both. Yourself and the other, if you are mindful and stay calm. People unfamiliar with the teaching. Okay, now this is the part I wanted to share you, connected with the previous one. The people unfamiliar with the teaching consider one who heals both oneself and the other to be a fool. So whoever does not have heard about the Dhamma considers one who heals both oneself and other to be a fool. They might think that is a fool who is in patience because they haven't heard about the teaching, which means they are following their own mind, angry mind. So whenever one gets to hear about the Dhamma, so that Dhamma start to teach you that the perfect purity is not the anger, but overcoming the anger. That's why this title, like this God, Satka, took the side of the loving kindness, patience, not the side of the anger. So mendicants, even Satka, Buddha say, even Satka, Lord of gods, while living off of the fruit of his good and bad deeds, and ruling as sovereign Lord over these gods of 33, will speak in praise of patience and sweetness. But since you have gone forth in such a well-explained teaching and training, it would be truly beautiful for you to be patient and gentle. That was the Buddha's advice.
How do you talk about fear? How does someone guard that language fear? You talk a lot about anger, like getting angry to you. Someone shouting at you.
Yeah. Most of the time, our fears are connected with our imaginations. So way that we imagine is something can bring us the fear. Yeah, it can be a bad, but most of the time, like the Buddha say like this, tanhaya jayati soko, tanhaya jayati bhayam, which means craving brings you suffering, craving brings you fear. So which means whenever there's a fear, it's because that we had a certain amount of craving towards something. So we have fear of losing it. So that is what that is something which brings us fear. So again, like we think about a certain situation too much in our mind than in reality, which brings us fear. So to let go the fear, so the Buddha say, there are so many techniques that we can try out. One of the techniques is that you can start to think about the Buddha or Dhamma or Sangha. So in one's teaching, Buddha say, even the gods escape when there is a fear. But if somebody were to think about a Buddha who overcame fear, so they are thinking about a Buddha who completely understood the Four Noble Truths. So then, because they are thinking about a person who have the higher knowledge, complete knowledge about the life, so they can let go that fear because they are thinking about the Buddha. And again, the way that it happens is that our mind changes direction from the imagination of the fear to the Buddha, something that we inspired in our life. If we think about a person who has no fear, so our mind takes that direction because it's something like amazing, like it's something like we can believe. Like, is there a person who doesn't have any fear? Kind of like it's kind of extraordinary to know about such a person. So then when we keep thinking about that person, the Buddha who has removed all the anger, all the greed, all the fear, because of that we are thinking about him, our mind takes the direction of that person, thinking about that person, the contemplation of the Buddha. So then our mind will not go to that fearful thoughts, but instead it will go to the Buddha and it will inspire us. Again, we can think that about the fearful thought that this is harmful for me and this can bring harm to others. This does not lead to my happiness. This will lead to my suffering. This does not lead to my goal. So when you think like that, So you can neutralize the power of that fear. Okay. Again, you can always pay attention to that very thought which brings you fear and try to forget it. You keep forgetting it. Again, you can find the reason why there is this fear, and you can go deeper into that problem and try to understand the exact cause which brings you fear. That can also settle your mind. We can think about the Buddha or Dhamma, the practices that we already trained in our life. So we can think about those practices, such as, like, let's say I haven't killed a living being for, let's say, right after I'm having the training roles, let's say for 1 year, I haven't killed any living being. So if I can rely on that fact, so why do I need to fear? I'm a person who is doing a difficult thing. I'm a person who is doing a very challenging thing. So I don't harm any living being in the world. So that can bring you inspiration. Buddha say, whatever fear comes in the world comes from the five things. The fear, whatever the fear comes, in Panchabhayavera Buddha say, the fear comes from five things. What are the five things? Killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, speaking lies, telling lies, and taking drugs. These are the five things which brings us fear. And again, anger, Buddha say. So, yeah. But let's say if we are observing these training rules, so we have a ground in us that there's no point to bring us fear.